I'll fix it later.
I'm looking for this Wall Street on Parade article.
That's right. We're live now, Corey. I forgot to bring up the intro music, but that's okay. We'll fix it in post. We're here live on Libservative. He's Corey Walsh.
And he is Dan Griffin.
And today is January 11th, 2022. And we have a lot to catch up on, Corey, because the last 2 weeks, both the end of year show and the beginning of year show, it was all about positivity. We're throwing all that shit out the window. And I'm going to start by letting you know that it is, I think I just checked the excuse me, it's the alcohol. I just checked the thermostat outside, and we are still at Laura Ingram's vagina cold outside here in Metro Detroit. So
is that in Celsius or Fahrenheit? I think I asked that last time, actually.
It's Fahrenheit. It's like 11 degrees Fahrenheit outside. So
what would that be in Celsius? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm American.
It doesn't matter. And Laura Ingram's vagina is in good shape here in Metro Detroit. So we're all set and ready to go. What are you drinking tonight, Corey? Oh wait, you're totaling tea.
Yeah, I'm drinking. Well, actually, I'm out of the tea now. I'm just drinking tea. Still in my dry January.
So we only have what, 2 or 3 more episodes left of that nonsense?
Yeah, sorry. Sorry.
You could have at least pretended. You could have put like some water in like a rocks glass and like put a little food coloring in it to make it look like you were drinking bourbon.
Just apple juice on ice.
Or you could have just used tea. Just tea kind of looks like whiskey if you brew it right, doesn't it? I don't know. I'm an idiot.
I don't know. My wife made it for me. She's like, I'm going to add milk and sugar. It's what old people do. And I was like, I'm not old.
Prove it.
I don't know how to prove it.
I can't have any fun with you with delicious bourbon, so I just made myself a snobby ass dirty martini again. And I got some High Noon seltzer sitting here next to me, and I'm already half in the bag. So here we go on on Libservative. Corey, where would you like to start tonight's show? I'm assuming you would like to start with the news blackout on these bank repo loans from 8 quarters ago.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the article.
Were we not ready? Do you want me to send it to you? I have it right here. You want me to throw
it?
Yes,
actually. Yeah, throw it up. Throw that up. You know, I was looking for it, and then all of a sudden you're like, we're live. And I was like, oh, shit, we're live.
I put it in the chat for you, so you can go ahead and give it a good click. Because I think you know exactly what you're looking for. I only read through a little bit of this. I know the basics of this. I guess I'll set it up for you while you pull it up. Okay, go ahead.
But yeah, so there's a news blackout. This is from Wall Street on Parade, and it's basically this girl Pam Martins and this guy and her husband, I think, Russ Martins, and they just keep a watch on Wall Street and see where the money's going and like monetary policy and fiscal policy and all that fun stuff. And there's something that happened in September of 2019 that nobody is talking about, and it's not and no one really understands why. So in the last quarter of 2019, the Federal Reserve released the names of banks that had received $4.5 trillion in cumulative loans in the last quarter. And it was under its emergency repo loan operations. Now, what a repo loan is basically is the government buys things like stocks and bonds and things like that from companies, and with the intention of selling it back, I believe. I had the actual term for it up, but then I reset my computer because that's what I do. It's a repurchase agreement. It's a form of a short-term borrowing for dealers and government securities. And so basically, they buy it from a dealer sells government securities to investors, usually on an overnight basis, and buys them back the following day at a slightly higher price. And so the government was doing these repo loans, just propping up the stock market like absolutely insane. In like,
would you like me to give you the definition according to Investopia?
Yes.
So a repurchase agreement or repo is a form of short-term borrowing for dealers in government securities. In the case of repo, a dealer sells government securities to investors, usually on an overnight basis, and buys them back the following day at a slightly higher price. That small difference in price is the implicit overnight interest rate. Repos are typically used to raise short-term capital. They are also a common tool of central bank and open market operations.
Yeah, so that's basically the government's buying stuff from these people, and then, or they're selling to the government loans. Right? I'm sorry, I got it way backwards. So
We'll figure
the
this out. We're
yeah,
not
so
economists here.
right, I'm not an economist. In this economy, uh, so the government, the dealer sells government securities. So the government is buying loans, and then they're buying them back the following day at a slightly higher price. So what this is basically doing is just keeps pumping the stock market up, and it's like a feedback loop over and over and over again. So this amounted to $4.5 trillion in the last quarter of 2019. Now this is right before COVID, and there was different news articles that were talking about this, but at the time they didn't know who the banks were that were getting this money. And here's the kicker, Dan. This is why it pisses me off, and I thought it was worth talking about. So $4.5 trillion was giving to borrowers like JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and Citigroup. Now, these are the same banks that needed bailouts in 2009 because of the housing crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And it's looking like we bailed them out again. Now, the Fed is calling it a liquidity crisis, but the fact that there's only a couple banks, and it's like a liquidity crisis is like when all the banks all of a sudden they don't have liquid assets. They only gave this money to a small amount of banks, so there wasn't a liquidity crisis. They're just throwing money at these banks for God knows what. I mean, when you look up the banks and like who owns the stock in the Feds, these three banks own the most of like the Fed itself.
So here's the way I see it as an idiot, as the intellectual idiot that I like to refer to myself as. So Dodd-Frank was a law that was put in 2010 to basically try and prevent what happened in 2008 and 2009 from ever happening again, right? I mean, that's
yes.
In a nutshell, that's what the Dodd-Frank law is. But here's what's silly about it. Under Dodd-Frank, you don't have to report these said repo loans and various other transactions with the Fed for 8 fucking quarters after they happen. Corey, that's 2 years.
Yeah, after the dust is settled, no one's going to think about it because they're going to be like, "Oh, well, it was a year ago." It's a freaking mess, man.
And
I don't understand.
The bigger question is, and the thing that's more concerning, and the thing that doesn't make sense, that like, okay, so I don't necessarily expect like CNN or Fox News or MSNBC to cover something like this because it's not sexy and it's kind of boring and nobody really cares, although they should. But I do expect, publications that are focused on the markets to cover something like this. And Corey, it's radio silence. It's radio silence from every publication out there. And so the thing that is scarier is, why did these major financial institutions need these loans? Why did they need them? If it's, as you said, the Fed claimed it was a liquidity crisis.
But like if it was, they'd be giving it to a lot of banks. But there was only like a couple of banks. I think there was a total of like 20 some banks, 24 trading houses on Wall Street, and a lot of them were subsidiaries.
So I guess you could say that it was a liquidity crisis for these major banks.
Yeah. Because these banks deal in like basically gambling on the market, and they lost.
I mean, that's our speculation, and you're probably right when you say that. But the fact that like we can't actually point to something and know why these financial institutions needed these loans, that is so fucking terrifying.
Yeah, that's the thing that bothers me the most too, is the fact that we don't know exactly why. They're not giving a legitimate reason.
And they won't, because they don't
give
have
the names out for 2 years. And this happened right before COVID. And now I'm not putting a tinfoil hat on saying that they knew something was coming and things like that, but they sure as shit used COVID as a guise to go, "Oh man, the stock market, we need to be bailed out again."
Oh, and stupid virus.
Dang it. Yeah, it's
Oh,
it's
geez.
mind numbing.
Corey
And
Walsh
then,
likes to say.
oh geez, oh man. And so right here, like in this article that we're talking about on Wall Street on Parade, the title of the article is "There's a new news blackout on the Fed's naming of the banks that got its emergency repo loans. Some journalists appear to be under gag orders." Now, the reason why
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Pam
I'd
says
forgotten about
this
that. Yeah.
is, now I'm going to read this from the article. She goes, "Could this critically important story have simply slipped by all of the dozens of investigative reporters and Fed watchers at these news outlets?" Because she's talking about in the article how all the news outlets talked about this 4.5 trillion 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we got the names of it, you would think that those names would be just plastered all over the media. But it's not. No one's heard about this. And it's, could this critically important story have simply slipped by all of the dozens of investigative reporters and Fed watchers at these news outlets? Absolutely not. The Fed was required to release its repo loan data and names of the banks for the span of September 17th through September 30th, 2019, at the end of the third quarter of this year. We report, and this was on December 29th when this article was written. It was updated January 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
But she said, "We reported on what that information revealed on October 13th because we were similarly stunned by the news blackout on the Fed's release. Out of courtesy, we sent our story to the reporters covering the Fed for the major news outlets, and our article alerted each of these reporters that much of the larger data released from the Fed for the full fourth quarter of 2019 would be released on or about December 31st. That data was posted at the New York Fed sometime before 1:23 p.m. last Friday. The most puzzling part of this news blackout is that the majority of the reporters who covered the Fed story at the time it was happening in 2019 are still employed at the same news outlets. We emailed a number of them and asked why they were not covering this important story. Silence prevailed. We then emailed the media relations contacts for the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Financial Times, and the Washington Post, inquiring as to why there was a news blackout in the story. Again, silence. Next, we emailed a number of reporters who had covered the story in 2019, but were no longer employed at a major news outlet. We asked their opinion on what could explain this bizarre news blackout on such a major financial story. We received emails phrasing our reporting, but advising that they can't comment. The phrase "can't comment" as opposed to "don't wish to comment" raised a major alarm bell. Wall Street mega banks are notorious for demanding that their staff sign non-disclosure agreements and non-disparaging agreements in order to get severance pay and other benefits when they are terminated. Are the newsrooms covering Wall Street mega banks now demanding similar gag orders from journalists? If they are, we're looking at a form of corporate tyranny previously unseen in America. I don't understand why there isn't nothing talking about this. $4.5 trillion. So that's $4.5 trillion in 2019. And then all the trillions of dollars in the year of 2020 during the COVID relief time. So we're talking like $10 trillion just given to these banks, essentially. Because one of the reasons why we see inflation is a lot of people, when they got this extra money, they didn't spend it. There was nowhere to spend it. So they went home and they just paid off their debts. So this money all went right back to the banks. So we're talking, like I said, $10 trillion just pumped into the economy in forms of, and half of it was not even passed by legislators. It was just given in secrecy by the Fed. And now they're not saying why the money was actually given. The news ain't reporting that it was Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, and Citibank. The same three banks that we bailed out in 2008.
Yeah, you're not hearing anything about it. And as far as the former reporters that are mentioned in this article, the word "can't" really is huge there.
Right.
The words I can't comment are huge there. It does lead you to believe there's some sort of gag order on them. And the question is why?
And we're not talking about just randos. We're talking about journalists who deal with words for a living. So and they know which words they're using.
And we're talking about journalists that have covered the markets for decades.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about journalists that reported on the 2008 and 2009 financial crisis.
Yeah.
So all I can think is like, so say, Corey, let's say you decided to give me your money to invest. I'm the bank or the financial advisor, right? You say, Dan, I trust you. Here's all of my money.
Dan, I trust you. Here's all of my money.
Okay. That's not much, is it? I take all of that money and I go to the ATM and I take it and I play in one hand of blackjack on the blackjack table. And maybe I win. If I win, oh, hey, Corey, here you go. I just doubled your money in overnight. Great. Isn't that a great job I just did? Or maybe I lose.
And it's gone.
I lose all your money and I lose all my money. But I have the Fed that can just write me another check to start all over again. Now
you have a daddy Warbucks that just gives you your money back, but I'm fucked.
Yeah, now you, Joe Schmo, you're fucked. You lost everything you had. But I'm good as the financial advisor or the Citigroup or the JP Morgans of the world. So there's absolutely no reason for big banks like Chase and Citigroup and Goldman Sachs and others not to make these risky moves, because that's we don't know what they are, but clearly they're out there making risky moves if they need to take out all these repo loans in 2019, knowing under Dodd-Frank that they don't have to report those things until 2 years later. They can go ahead and make that risky move and clean up the mess in between those 2 years in which they have to actually report it. So if I can just go gamble $1 million away without having to worry about it, knowing that there's just like you said, a daddy Warbucks out there who's just going to give me another $1 million to go out there and do it again. Guess what? I'm going to make some pretty risky bets.
Yep. And it's pretty much quantitative easing. You know what I mean? They're just buying assets and things like that to shore up the market. And it's just like, I can't pretend to get super technical and do all of that. But the question is, why can't I even find articles explaining it as to what's going on? And that's kind of where I'm at. And it's like, why aren't we getting answers for this? And the response is can't comment.
Yeah, the why is huge. And when you don't have big name publications out there willing to go out and do the digging, because for some reason it appears they've all been gagged, that's a problem. And it's fucking terrifying, because I mean, we've been talking, anybody who's at least a little bit economically illiterate, and I don't claim to be an economist. I don't claim to be incredibly economically literate or illiterate for that matter. We've been talking about the next collapse forever. I mean, people have mentioned the student loan bubble. People have mentioned another mortgage bubble with the artificially low interest rates that have now come back up a little bit, perhaps another housing crisis. We don't necessarily know exactly what's the first domino is going to be to fall, but it is coming. And with stuff like this, it sort of looks like we don't know on purpose. Somebody doesn't want us to know.
Right. And it's not like the government's doing this all the time either. This is the first time that something like this has happened since the 2008 financial crash. So it's like, what is going on?
And the sad part about it is, like, everybody expects economic recession, right? It just happens naturally, when you're dealing with a free market. But when you're talking about utter collapse and a recession that is, whatever you want to call it, 10, 20, 100-fold worse than it should have been because of irresponsible financial institutions that don't have to worry about it, because guess what? Daddy Warbucks is just going to print more cash and give it back to you.
Yeah, the banks can just,
where I have an issue.
Yeah, the banks can just meddle however they want when they have no risk. They can just fuck off and do whatever they want because the government's going to bail them out.
I mean, Barack Obama said it himself. I mean, at least it was rumored to have said it himself. The banks are the ones that, got me elected, not the voters. Nobody cares about the voters. So, like, when the government is in bed with the banks, because the banks get people elected, the banks donate the money, the Wall Street donates the money.
Whether it's rumored or not, his actions spoke louder than words. And then while millions of Americans lost their homes, he was giving all this money to the big banks. And that's not just me saying it. That's all those people who are out there protesting on Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah. You can't mean.
You remember the photos? Do you remember the photos of the people from the banks drinking champagne on the balcony, looking down at all the people protesting? Have you ever seen those photos?
Yeah, I have seen those photos, and it's amazing how quickly that went away, right?
Yeah,
And why did that go away? Because they wanted it to go away.
yeah, exactly. I was looking to see. Oh yeah, see here. So here's a.
All you got to do is class bait and race bait enough, throw enough tweets out there, get Donald Trump elected, and all of a sudden everybody fucking forgets. Right?
Yeah, that's all you got to do. Yeah, because Trump bad,
Trump, orange man bad.
orange man bad. Here, yeah, actually, I'll share. I just googled it really fast.
Just share one of those photos.
Yeah, just to piss you off, Dan. Just to make you angry. Let me show you
Careful.
this real quick.
Careful. I've had a little bit of alcohol this evening, so I don't want to.
So here they are over here. This is them taking photos and laughing at the people that were below them. There they are up there.
This is just a simple Google search.
Just drinking champagne and taking photos of all the people below them. Like, look at these.
Look at all those boomers.
Look at all these fucking peasants below us bitching about their houses.
How dare they want a place to live, sons of bitches.
God, it's just disgusting, man. It's gross.
Oh, I'm laughing because that's really all you can do sometimes. So, look, we don't know what the hell's going to happen next, but the silence is deafening. Is it not on this?
The silence is compliance.
So we're looking at January 11th, 2022. We're talking about this for the first time, and we're not the only ones. There are other independent publications that are out there talking about this, other independent podcasts, other independent media. I'm not going to sit here and act like we're all high and mighty and better than a lot of them. In fact, in most cases, we're actually a lot worse. However, the silence from the people that actually have a giant voice that for some reason people still trust, you're not hearing anything from them.
Yeah.
On this entire thing. So
we're Biden. Where's everyone talking about this? Who are all the populists being for the working man? Isn't one person about this? Like, that's what's insane to me.
They're too busy arguing about whether or not Marjorie Taylor Greene should be banned from Twitter.
Right. And it kills me because, like, this isn't some tinfoil hat conspiracy type thing. Like, all of the news outlets were talking about this in 2009 or 2019. Like, if you look up repo loans 2019, CNN's talking about it, MSNBC, Money Matters, like all the different outlets were talking about it. But then once they release the names of the ones who they're giving the money to, zip.
By the way, for those who still think Donald Trump is the savior, he was president and the election had not taken place when these loans were given out. Just throwing that out there.
You're not wrong. It was actually one of my kind of talking points when I used to talk trash about Trump when everyone, that's why I remember this, because people are like, oh, yeah, Trump, the economy is great. And I was like, well, like, sure, it's artificially great. There's trillions of dollars in repo loans be given to prop up the stock market.
Yeah, stock market's on fire, but and everybody had jobs, right? Unemployment was so low, but what nobody ever talked about during that time period was the fact that, how many of those people were working two jobs, at a wage that is completely unreasonable just to keep the lights on.
Yep. And you want to know what's funny now too is like Biden is trying to tout the same type of little story, little mantra. Like, he keeps saying the same thing. Like, look at the unemployment rate. And it's like, yeah, Biden, guess what? Workforce participation rate's the lowest it has ever been.
Well, not to mention, you can't claim that you lowered unemployment rates when everybody was laid off during COVID. Just because they went back to work doesn't mean that you...
Yeah, they're doing this weird... what were they doing? They were doing that weird measurement. They were saying that he's added more jobs on average over every month compared to any other president in the world. And they're only measuring his 11 months compared to like people like Trump, who's had 8 years. And it's in a crazy time like COVID when like things are just opening up and people are just getting their jobs back. And they're like, new jobs created.
No, those aren't new jobs. Those aren't new jobs. Those might have been people changing jobs and switching companies or whatever, going to do something different. But hey, man, we've been up on the workers' revolution, and we're going to keep up on it here because Corey and I openly on this show have no problem telling you we fucking support it.
Oh yeah, it's the year of the worker, man.
Go get what you deserve. Don't let the boomers out there tell you you're lazy. Here's, you know what it is? I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on the show before, but I'm half in the bag, so I'll talk about it right now on a little tangent. Do you know what my biggest issue with boomers actually is?
Like I handed a great economy and then they just stifled it.
That's my biggest issue. So you got that part right. But I think the biggest disagreement with myself as an older millennial, right? I'm like in the middle. I'm 33 years old. Our generation, what I love about our generation is the fact that I think we are the first generation, maybe since the Carnegie days, maybe since unions were created, that actually understands their self goddamn worth. Because when you listen to your parents and you listen to your grandparents and talk about, well, I just got up and I busted my ass and I went to work every day and I was miserable the entire time and I worked until I was 65 and that's just what they're supposed to do as an American. We're the first generation to say, fuck that. We're the first generation to go, no, I can work and I have no problem putting in the work, but I know what I'm worth and it's okay for me to be rested and be happy and be healthy and extend my lifespan at the same time. I'm not just going to go to a job every day, bust my ass for whatever money they're willing to pay me and have that be a serviceable life. I'm not going to do that. I think you're the guy I don't think you do that. We're the first generation that's gone, hey, this is how it is. Fuck you.
Yeah, no, it does. It cracks me up that our generation is like, hey, why don't you just pay us a living wage? And everyone's like, oh,
you're entitled.
You're entitled. And it's like, okay.
Just because you weren't smart enough to ask for it, asshole, doesn't make me entitled.
Yeah, right. It's mind-boggling to me that they're okay with these piss poor wages where these companies are subsidized by our government. Goes back to our little ticker that says the government loves socialism when it's for the rich, essentially. And they subsidize companies like Walmart and things like that to the and what I mean by subsidize when it comes to the workers is Walmart can afford to pay these people $7, $8, $9 an hour at 20 hours a week because what this billion-dollar profit company isn't doing and not paying them this fair wage, the government comes in and picks up the tab and gives them their Medicaid and gives them their, the housing assistance and gives them EBT cards. When it's like, when people try to tell me like, oh, they don't deserve more money, it's like, okay, fine. Then you're paying for all their extra shit with your taxes when this company could pay for it. No fucking problem at all. I'm not even talking about handouts. It's a Bernie quote. Anybody working 40 hours a week shouldn't have to rely on the government for anything. And that's absolutely true.
And I think that's why our generation appreciated Bernie so much. I wish he wasn't such a cuck.
Yeah, he went a little woke in the second, and I don't think that's why he did so good. He fell into the identity politics.
He always kowtows and he cucks out to the Democratic establishment, and it's a shame. It's a shame that he does that. It's a shame that the whole squad does that. I get it.
They're not old.
He's probably running out of gas, but man, but what does everybody want to talk about? What does everybody want to talk about when it comes to AOC? She went down to Florida and had a party and didn't wear a mask. What a hypocrite. What a hypocrite. Like, you want to talk about something that doesn't actually matter in anybody's day-to-day life?
Oh, dude, the Twitter fights back and forth between politicians. But it's funny because I remember saying that to a friend of mine. I was like, yeah, I'm like, they're all just trying to be popular now. We're getting the likes and stuff like that. But then he put it in perspective, and he's right, actually. This has always been a part of American governments, unfortunately. All the way back to the 1700s. What was it? Jefferson and Hamilton. They were writing nasty, nasty letters about each other in the newspapers.
The thing that was different was it took like 8 days for anybody to get that. Now anybody can get it in 4 seconds
and respond at the same time. Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
got
there
a
was-
good memory, this guy.
But yeah, they did. And when you read some of them, the way they were talking, just mad shit about each other. It's no wonder why they were dueling back then. Maybe that's what we should do. Bring back duels.
Then Abe Lincoln kind of saved everybody, and now here we are again. Like that's American history right there. Just gave
In
it
a
to you in
tweet.
30 seconds.
In a tweet. That would be American history in 240 characters or less.
Man, we should do that. We got to do American history in a tweet.
A bunch of people told the British to get fucked. And now here we are.
Then Abe Lincoln came, saved us all, and now here we are.
Some young kids who didn't like authority told them to get fucked. A couple things happened, and then here we are. Yeah, what is
You
that?
are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working.
What is that in Seinfeld? Yada yada yada. Yeah, you know, and then yada yada yada, and then
Shall we move on to let's do red pill, blue pill.
okay.
Let's do red pill, blue pill. So our red pill, blue pill for this week, which pill are you going to swallow? Is Kamala Harris's comments on January 6th. So the Vice President of the United States, actually, I'm going to pull the whole thing up here. I want to give just the one paragraph that everybody's talking about in a huge goddamn speech. So Kamala Harris says, certain dates echo throughout history, including dates that instantly remind all who have lived through them where they were and what they were doing when our democracy came under assault. Dates that occupy not only a place in our calendars, but a place in our collective memory. December 7th, 1941, September 11th, 2001, and January 6th, 2021. This is the paragraph of this long speech that everybody's talking about. So the red pill here, she disrespected those who died on 9/11 and 12/7/41 by comparing January 6th to those days in which thousands of American lives were lost, as compared to the blue pill, which is she's so wonderful and brave to speak the truth about what happened on January 6th.
Is that how you're gonna box me in this corner like that? That's how you're gonna frame this? Oh man,
I mean, is that not what the
that's
libs
pretty
are
much
saying?
it. Yeah, yeah. The left is saying it's one of the worst days in American history. Like, never mind the Civil War, never mind 9/11. They're comparing it to 9/11 and to something in fucking Pearl Harbor. Never mind our internment camps. Never mind the Great Depression. Never mind the Great Recession. Never mind the Dust Bowl. Never mind like tragedies from hurricanes. January 6th, a date that will live in infamy, where this coup attempt by these people who try to overthrow the government, a government that has a 600 or 700 now because of Biden, $700 billion defense budget.
Because
Who
of Biden.
knew
I like how you
it
threw
could
that in there.
Who knew it could be circumvented by squatters' rights, Dan? I didn't know that if I just step foot in the Capitol, it's mine now.
Look. Wait, Corey jokes, and I think it's funny. Look, January 6th was fucking bullshit. It was a
Oh,
bunch
absolutely
of
it was. A bunch
was
of fucking idiots.
bunch of idiots that thought the election was stolen. And again, you want to talk about why Trump was a terrible president? Like, dude, January 6th doesn't happen if Trump's never president. Like, let's be honest about
Yeah,
that.
it culminated because of Trump. He definitely stoked that fire.
Does that mean that somehow Hillary Clinton would have been a great president? No, that's not what that means. But what I am saying is that January 6th doesn't happen without Donald Trump being president.
But really, let's think about it. If your president, the president that you support, is telling you that this deep state government is taking away everything from you. Now, that's the president of the United States, someone who's supposed to be one of the most like credible people in the world. If you really believe him, how else are you going to react? And that's why I'm putting it on him.
Stop believing him? I don't know.
That's kind of why I'm putting it on him. You know, the president of the United States has a responsibility, and he definitely floundered on his responsibility that day. But all of these idiots, based on lies propagated by their president, our president, the president, uh, they believed him and they stormed the Capitol. Now, they're a bunch of fucking idiots. I remember watching that, and I remember just being pissed off because I was like, damn it, you're wasting a good ass raid because you know we're never going to be able to do that shit again. The way they're talking about it, it was an insurrection, it was a coup. And these dumbasses, for some reason, thought that they could come in and then what, write a better constitution than the founding fathers? Like, what was their plan? Like, was that it? Like, that? Well, this is ours now, and you could tell they didn't know what the fuck they were supposed to do while they were in there, so they just started shitting in the hallways and trying to steal podiums. I don't know.
I declare that we will bring back government cheese, and everyone gets free marijuana for life. That's the Constitution I feel like the shaman would have written.
Right. Free cheese and free marijuana. That's some Vermin Supreme shit right there with free pony for everyone. But yeah, but it wasn't a coup attempt. It wasn't an insurrection. There's videos of Democrats doing, or not, I don't want to call them Democrats, like people from the left doing the same thing in county and city capitals of going in, you know, and doing and occupying and stuff like that. Granted, they weren't shitting on the ground or stealing podiums.
Don't you love how each side like tries to pretend that they're not the same thing?
They are. They're both the same thing. And I actually kind of wanted to get into that next. We could talk about mass formation psychosis.
But let's red pill, blue pill. If you want,
let me stick with this. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. And
all right, go ahead.
All of these idiots stormed the Capitol and pulled all this shit. But it's obviously, according to Joe Biden's Department of Justice, it's not really an insurrection and it's not really a coup because of the 700 people arrested are being charged with the same petty crimes of misdemeanors and things like that, of trespassing, of vandalism, obstructing government like
proceedings.
Yeah, I think that was one of them. And so they're all being charged with basically the same crimes that all the thousands of people that were arrested during the BLM movements when those riots came out, not the protests, but like the riots. There were riots.
Mm-hmm.
And all those people that were arrested were arrested for the same thing: vandalism, trespassing, unlawful, what is it called? An unlawful protest, an unlawful gathering. They're getting all charged with the same type of shit. Now, our own government isn't considering it an insurrection. Now, of course, they're on TV trying to play it up, and Kamala Harris is comparing it to the deaths of thousands of people, when the people that really died were the Trump protesters. Like, some of them had heart attacks. I think one overdosed on a drug or something like that.
Because there were a lot of boomers there.
Yeah, there was.
Opioids and heart attacks were what causes the deaths on January 6th.
The only reason I can think that they're even saying this shit is because that's all the Democrats have to run on. That's all they have. Remember January 6th, the great day of the coup. But our government, who is calling it that when we're in charge, we're not charging them with any sort of coup attempt. They're getting charged with vandalism. And it's like, give me a fucking break. So with that being said, because the way that
pill are you swallowing, Corey?
Because of the way that the left is just blowing this out of proportion and delegitimizing the deaths of thousands of people and actually trying to, like, you're not raising this up. You're not raising the bar of this event by comparing it to these other ones. You're lowering the bar of those. And because of that, because obviously our own Department of Justice is saying that it's not a coup attempt, I'm going with the red pill on this. They're a bunch of fucking idiots. It was stupid. They ruined a good chance at us ever having a chance at actually going in there and kicking in doors over real shit, like banks getting paid $4.5 trillion in repo loans, or our constant debauchery of foreign influence and foreign policy. No, they did it over a lie, and they ruined it for the rest of us. But I'm going to go with the red pill on this one.
Corey, I'm going to surprise you here. I'm in disagreement. I am going to swallow the blue pill here.
Ooh, okay.
And here's why. Look, when I look at this speech, I read the whole thing. And outside of that one little thing that she said comparing January 6th to 9/11 or December 7th, 1941, I would say that she didn't say anything ridiculous, super ridiculous. There was some hyperbole and some over exaggerations, of course, throughout the rest of that speech. But the other reason is because on the surface, what she's saying is not inaccurate, because we are all going to remember where we were, what we were doing on January 6th, 2021.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess I thought like more or less the basis of the argument was it a coup attempt or not? So I think that's why I was going with like the red pill.
But her whole speech doesn't necessarily
Focus
suggest
on that.
I think it's super gross that she compared January 6th to those two dates. I do. I actually think that's super gross. But on the surface, what she said was true. I don't think that makes her like super brave or whatever it is, whatever the leftists are trying to say. But I also think it's like, because I agree with you in that the Democrats they're going to use nothing but January 6th to try to get elected.
That's what their whole platform is going to be
in the next two election cycles. I'm 100% in agreement with you on that. But I also think that the right is going to try and use the reaction of January 6th to be like, look, these people are fucking crazy, in order to get themselves elected or reelected. When in reality, nobody gives a fuck about January 6th. Like,
yeah, not really.
Can I just make a living wage and like live in a house and have food that's affordable and a good economy? Like, that's what the American public cares about. That's the whole populist thing.
Right.
But that's not what the debates or the elections are going to be based on.
No, it's just going to be another identity politic shit show. Which I'm actually kind of excited.
It's going to be January 6th versus wokeism. That is going to be the next two election cycles.
January 6th and Trump versus wokeism and socialism.
Great. Perfect.
Live Saturday night, the massive showdown.
I'm only going with, I only swallowed the blue pill here because I think what she said is on the surface true. Everybody's going to remember, based on that one paragraph, everybody's going to remember where they were on January 6th. The grossness of comparing it to Pearl Harbor and 9/11, total agreement. That's really gross. But on the surface, she's right. What she said was right. Right? I mean, everybody's going to remember where they were.
Yeah, I was at work. I came home and watched it on the TV. Because it was fucking wild, I think, more or less.
On
than like it being a coup. Like, I remember where I was when there was different protests and different riots happening and stuff like that, and catching it on the tube and what was going on and who was with me watching it and stuff like that. It's definitely a bookmark in the history, but it isn't no fucking coup. And that's not just me saying it. That's our fucking government who's not charging them with any sort of coup stuff.
Kazakhstan, Corey.
Kazakhstan. That's where Borat's from.
I don't know why I didn't put that on I don't know why it's not going on the ticker. Maybe you can figure that out.
Yep, I got it right now.
No idea why it won't let me do it. So yeah, Borat. Everybody thinks Kazakhstan. They think Borat. This is something that I've been taking a deep dive into over the last couple of days. Corey and I talked about it a little bit last night during our show prep meeting. So civil unrest in Kazakhstan that was originally started due to a hike in gas prices in the region. At least that's the way it's being reported. And it's believed by the Kazakh president Tokayev that this civil unrest that took place last week and was pretty bad. I mean, a couple thousand people died. Like, it was pretty nasty.
Oh, really? That many? How many were killed by the government?
Yeah, I don't know if it's died or injured, but it was not good. And Putin sent in some forces to help quell the unrest at the request of the Kazakh government. Putin's claim is that some of the quote-unquote demonstrators seemed to have some sort of formal training of some kind, which, pushes the narrative of it being a coup.
Take what he says with a grain of salt, just like we do our government.
Of
It's
course.
yeah.
But I've been digging into Kazakhstan as a whole, and this one is really, really interesting because I don't think it's necessarily as simple as Ukraine. It's not as simple as some of the things that happen in Central America and South America, because Kazakhstan is actually the top economy in Central Asia. So that includes Kazakhstan, Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, all the other
Uzbekistan,
all the other
all the
stands
stands.
there in the region. Kazakhstan's the number one economy, and the reason for that is oil, of course. Kazakhstan holds 3% of the world's oil reserves. Now, consider how big the planet is. That's a pretty significant number. I mean, 3 out of 100 gallons of gasoline would come from Kazakhstan by those metrics. So I want to talk about the U.S. ties to Kazakhstan. Now, you're going to have to follow me here. This is going to get a little boring. If you're watching and you don't like it, fuck off. So the U.S. was the first to recognize Kazakhstan as an independent nation 30 years ago. Kazakhstan is a signee of the Treaty of Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, giving up all of their Soviet-era warheads. They have engaged in multiple counterterrorism cooperation schemes with the United States. And they are geopolitically important in that they share a border with China, Russia, and they are very, very close to Afghanistan. Okay, which brings us to oil. As I said, about 3% of the world's oil reserves are in Kazakhstan. And where there is oil, Corey, there is big oil. With Chevron and ExxonMobil having billions of dollars in energy investment in Kazakhstan. Now, couple that with the fact that they share a border with both China and Russia, you could see why geopolitically the United States might have a decent amount of interest in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings me to now the Chinese ties to Kazakhstan. So Kazakhstan and China have been trading basically exclusively in oil since 1997. Kazakh oil would be shipped to China for processing and then sold back to Kazakhstan in the form of gasoline and petrochemical products. So Kazakhstan, for a long time, did not have the ability to refine their own oil, so they would essentially sell it to China. China would make the products and then sell them back to Kazakhstan. But as oil prices started hurting the Kazakh economy, they started to look into processing oil for themselves. So they turned to their old pal China for some industrial transfer deals. So what that means is basically Kazakhstan is paying China to build the processing capabilities within Kazakhstan, not all of which were in the oil or in gas sector, but that is where Kazakhstan started doing business with China. Basically, hey, China, come over here, build this shit for us. We get, the factories that we need to start really a more booming economy outside of just the oil sector. And you get to, ship your labor over here that you can't find anything else to do with in China, which we see in Africa and various places throughout the world when it comes to China. So as you can see, China also has billions of dollars tied up in Kazakhstan, and particularly in their oil and gas sector. And then there's Russia, which just simply has a 4,750 mile border with Kazakhstan.
That's a pretty big border.
What I'm getting at here is that all three of these global powers have serious interest in Kazakhstan. So when the Kazakh president comes out and says that this was a coup attempt, what's interesting is I don't think we can necessarily know who is responsible, because geopolitically, Kazakhstan seemingly has done a pretty goddamn good job of keeping all three of the world powers somehow in its back pocket.
Yeah.
So who's responsible? Now, what we know, and you dug this up yesterday, Corey, is that Russia, they seem to trust Russia more militarily. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. One is that it seems that China doesn't necessarily have the military the military capabilities to be able to defend anything outside of China, which is kind of good news geopolitically for the United States.
For now.
Yeah, for now. But not only that, but the Kazakh people don't seem to trust China because there are a lot of Uyghur Muslims in Kazakhstan.
Yep.
And there's a decent Kazakh population in China as well. So Kazakhstan doesn't necessarily trust China. At least maybe their government does, but their people don't. And geopolitically, Kazakhstan's done a really good job so far. I'm actually just doing this digging in the last couple of days. I'm actually kind of impressed with this country.
The way they've been able to, to navigate the turbulent waters of the three big powers of just being stuck in the middle.
So what I would say, go ahead if you have more to say.
And I was just gonna say, and it's interesting how they haven't been fucked with too much, like a Ukraine or any of those other countries, because of where they're at. But what's interesting about this is the response from Russia when it came to a place like Kazakhstan versus Ukraine, which I think solidifies actually when we were talking in a couple episodes ago, how when America and the West was like meddling in Ukraine, Russia just went to the border because they don't want Ukraine. There ain't shit in Ukraine for them. It's the worst country in in all of Europe. You know, it's corrupt as shit. It's poor. It's not. The infrastructure is terrible. Like it's not the country isn't on very good feet right now. Kazakhstan has a civil unrest like Ukraine did. They call Russia for help. Russia was there essentially like the next day, like within hours. They had troops heading into Kazakhstan to like sit there and actually like straight up like protect it and be like, hey, none of you pulling this shit. Yeah, and that's what I was just gonna say. So it's interesting. Well,
what's interesting to me is like, okay, so it makes total sense that the Kazakh president would come on and say that this was a coup attempt, but by whom? That's what's interesting. Is you could see why the United States would want to do it.
You can see why Russia would want to do it.
You can see why the Chinese would want to do it.
You can see why the Chinese would want to do it.
So
even though I don't think Russia would, because I don't know if they want to have a destabilized country, that would be a power vacuum right on their border. Well, if anything, they want it stable.
To make things even more interesting, and I forgot the name of it. It's a strange political party. But when we were doing our show prep last night, Corey, I looked up the party in power in Kazakhstan. It's been in power since 1999, and what was interesting is we could not decipher what their political leanings are because they had absorbed parties that would be considered leftist, or left-leaning or leftist, but they also had a good relationship with the United States, which historically
never works with a leftist government.
Yeah, has overthrown so many leftist governments, even though, the Republicans in this country like to say that, the Democratic Party is socialist. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. and it's so interesting the way that geopolitically, the way that Kazakhstan has just been able to navigate this. It's almost like, are they just playing all three of these countries right now? Like, is this poor little nation that's, and it's not super poor. It's, like I said, it's the number one economy in Central Asia. But I mean, we're talking, that's relatively speaking globally, correct?
Yeah.
So
it's the bar is pretty low.
Yeah, this little country is just, I think it might just be playing all three countries because I was sitting here I was trying to figure out who has the most incentive to employ a coup in Kazakhstan. And I can't figure it out. I mean, like you said, I don't think it's Russia. It's got to either be the United States or China.
It could have just been a straight up little coup thing. I mean, it could have just been a Even maybe this is one of the little tactics that Kazakhstan does to make sure it stays its little nest egg little area. Because like
So maybe it's like, all right, hey Russia, are you still willing to just give us some troops? You throw some bone here for a minute? Oh yeah, sure, we'll throw you a bone. All
yeah,
right,
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm
cool.
saying. That maybe there actually was just an in-house thing happening, and they were like, "Nope,
All
come
right,
help
cool.
us."
So now we know. Okay, cool. Russia's still good. Hey, China, we still good for you still gonna come help us build some shit? Okay, cool. We're going to China. United States, you just gonna make sure that nothing weird's going on here? Okay, good. All right, so everybody's good.
Yeah, pretty
And
much.
then it's just gonna go away.
Yeah. And like that's just it. It's not like Crimea or anything like that where the Russians invaded. They asked.
Mhm.
They're like, "Please send some troops here."
And the other thing that's interesting about this is that it seems as if Russia still has the military force in the region over China, right? Because everybody's worried about China.
Yeah. Yeah,
But I
yeah,
have
yeah.
my
This
own
kind of
theory.
solidified that between Crimea and all that. Russia still has one of the biggest ground armies in the world. And that's another reason why I talk about how the whole Ukraine thing, like America's not going to get into a ground war with Russia. We have like our troops don't I don't even know if I don't think they train anymore for ground war. It's all spec ops and high tech weaponry and little platoons and things like that. And we don't have mass offensive ground like strategy that we've been practicing for a while.
And what I find interesting is I don't think that's I don't think that is something that is lost on China either, right? Like I think when we see that and we go, all right, so Russia still has the ground force, military control over the region. That doesn't make me feel any more secure about China because China, I think, has this idea of where warfare is going, which is more cyber. It's more
Which is kind of the same thing we're doing.
100%. Yeah. So it's almost like Russia's kind of a little bit stuck in the past, maybe, even though, they
But they
lost
would
the
still
election.
fuck someone up.
They lost the election for Hillary Clinton, too. So
I mean, that's
you know,
like North Korea, even who's even behind them. But they have what is it like? A couple of thousand just AA guns just pointed at South Korea. That like if they did go to war, like millions of South Koreans would still die, and they don't even have technically nuclear weapons.
yeah. So Kazakhstan's super interesting. And I think it's something I'll keep an eye on. I love the publication over at the Gray Zone. Shout out to the Gray Zone. They do a wonderful job with stories like this.
They
And
do. They do a good deep dive into foreign policy stuff.
we'll keep an eye on it. But like, I'm sort of getting this like weird cynical idea that this was just Kazakhstan's way of like, all right, so people were pissed about gas prices. They protested. Let's use this to our advantage and make sure we're still okay with the three global superpowers.
Right? Yeah, I don't know. Like,
Speculation on my part. Total speculation.
yeah, and I mean, like, we talk a lot about different countries and how America does meddle, and there's coup attempts and stuff like that. But not every single thing of unrest is going to be the American government.
Yeah,
And this one, I don't think I can understand Ukraine. It's next to the EU. You're going to disrupt Russia's logistics of trying to make money. Like you're going to mess up their economy with the pipeline that Germany is supposed to be getting from them. There's a lot more incentive to mess with Ukraine for them. Kazakhstan, not really. There's, it's surrounded. It's all by itself. We don't really have any allies next to
I mean,
it.
the
We're
only
not
thing
in
is
Afghanistan.
those oil reserves.
Yeah.
It's the only
And
thing.
and at the same time, though, a destabilized country makes everyone else take a step back and have to worry about that shit, and it affects their progress and moving forward in their own little ventures. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence on this one. I don't know if America had anything to do with this one, and I'm super skeptical of our government.
100%.
We just talked about Nicaragua a couple episodes back, where they that was absolutely the government fucking with them. The stuff in Ukraine, that's the government fucking with them. Haiti in 2011, Clinton was down there fucking with them, stifling wages for low wage workers. Like we do it. We're not saying we don't, but Kazakhstan, I'm not sure. We might need some more cards to fall on the ground before we see it. Like you got like there's different little breadcrumbs and bread trails you can look for. And like the Coup group that was trying to take over was like a left-leaning group. That's not America's playbook. So yeah, it's interesting. It is an interesting one.
So, shall we get into positive news before we get into your monologue? We're an hour in here, Corey.
Yeah. Or do you want to talk about here you go. See the ticker?
Oh, sad boy Patton Oswald. Real quick. How woke is too woke? How woke is too woke is when you take to Twitter and you apologize for being friends with someone, which is exactly
but still
what
claiming to be friends with them, but then like basically just say your friend's an idiot and you're working on them.
I'm trying to help them. I'm trying to help. Look, Patton Oswald took pictures and he took to Instagram taking pictures with Dave Chappelle, and then took a bunch of shit for it and proceeded to write a goddamn Bible.
And posted a picture of him writing it.
Yeah.
What do you think what was playing in those headphones as he was writing that?
Hello, it's me.
I'm sorry, I can't be perfect. Because it's just too late. And you can't go back.
Little Rapper's Delight. No, this is what was playing over and over again.
Yeah, probably. That's probably exactly what was playing over and over.
And then when
again.
he was done,
woohoo! I love that song.
like I like Patton Oswald, but I cannot believe he apologized for taking a picture with Dave Chappelle. Like, regardless, because here's the thing, here's what upsets me about it. It's like, even if you're one of these people that truly believes Dave Chappelle is a transphobe, truly believes he's this horrible, disgusting piece of shit, right? Which is like 12 people in all actuality. Oh, there he is. There he is writing it. Got his hand over his mouth.
Like, oh my God.
On a yellow legal pad, by the way.
Just writing.
Even if you're one of these people that thinks Dave Chappelle is a complete piece of shit, do you really believe he's just not allowed to have friends? Like, he just can't have friends. And anybody that's friends with him, we need to dox them and throw them in the garbage. And the thing that upset me most about Patton Oswalt, and look, I'm just upset with Patton's actions. I really don't have an issue with Patton Oswalt.
No, he's actually like really, really nice, and he's a very well-intentioned type guy. It's just like, what are you doing, dude?
I just completely disagree with what he did and why he did it. He did it to save face. Like, it's kind of gross that he did it for himself. You know what I mean? Like, that his own, ego was more important to him than, actually being friends with a friend that I believe he admitted he'd been friends with for 30 years is what he said.
I'm sorry for being friends with this person for 34 years, but I'm going to keep being their friend.
Basically, yeah, is what he said. And so I don't know. I lost my train of thought.
Did Dave Chappelle even say anything back to him?
Probably not.
Did he write an essay?
I didn't see it. No, like is that something you really want to see? Do you really see like an Instagram war between Dave Chappelle and Patton Oswalt? Like the world
just saying sorry to each other. It's like the saddest. This is the saddest fucking Instagram Twitter feud I've ever seen in my life. Do you think that picture that was taken was organic, or was he like, all right, take it now? I wonder who took the photo. Was it Dave? Do you think Dave Chappelle took the photo?
That would be beautiful.
That would be.
If we figured out that's what it was. But like Patton Oswalt said some things about like being in disagreement about trans rights and whatever. And it's like, no, you're not. Like, watch Dave's special. Like, he's not anti-trans at all.
Right. It's people who just haven't seen it. It's like when people are talking about Robert Malone. They didn't watch the interview with Joe Rogan. They're just talking about the regurgitated talking points.
Oh God, David Pakman. What?
Oh yeah. Oh, that mass formation psychosis. Oh my God. I love how he mentioned that, and that's what's happening, right? And like, it could be a new coin term. I don't think now if there's a medical term, if it's an actual medical term or anything, but like the three words put together in a saying make sense. That's what words do. And everyone is falling into this, what he would coin mass formation psychosis, to call out the right's mass formation psychosis. And it's like, you're not seeing the forest through the trees here. Both sides do it.
Oh, dude, it's just when mass formation psychosis is now been a phrase that, and we've talked about this a million times. The right does this very, very well. They have adopted that now as a
Mhm.
catchphrase because what they do is they pay attention to what the left is saying and what they don't like, and they just adopt it and they just bring
Just
it
to
into their.
own the libs.
Yeah, even if they don't like that's what's happened with people like Barry Weiss. That's what's happened with people like Joe Rogan. That's what's happened with various other people that are not
Oh, yeah.
necessarily right-wing
They're
people.
not right-wing people at all. Joe Rogan's he's a self-proclaimed leftist. Like Kyle Rittenhouse, he was just adopted by the right, and then he's talking to Tucker Carlson on TV, and he's like, "Yeah, I like BLM. I like Kobe Bryant, like
Or LeBron James, yeah.
or LeBron James." Sorry, yeah.
The right does a really good job, and the left, it sucks. The left falls for it every single time. So now they look at something like mass formation psychosis, and they go, "Well, that's just a right wing talking point." Now we just never mind
Right.
what it actually means,
Or that it actually has merit in regards to both sides and their party over country echo chamber bias.
Yeah,
Fucking little chambers that they lock themselves in.
yeah. That's like if you Google what is mass formation psychosis, the first thing I just Google. I'm not going to DuckDuckGo it. I'm actually going to Google it. Let's see what comes up when I Google mass formation
Oh, it's
psychosis.
just gonna be a bunch of bullshit about
I
Robert
can
Malone, probably.
promise you that's what it's going to be. Mass formation psychosis. Here we go. Oh, COVID is included in that little phrase.
Sounds about right.
What's the first thing that comes up? Forbes magazine. What is mass formation psychosis?
Oh, I read that article.
Robert Malone makes.
Oh man, that's that opinion. Oh my God, I read that one, and it's like
A scientist made unfounded COVID-19 mass information psychosis claims. That's from the Business Insider. What is mass formation psychosis? It's like mass hysteria. That's from Nepsi. Joe Rogan, mass formation psychosis, and why people really believe unscientific things. That's from the Independent. It's like nobody cares what it actually means. It's a right-wing thing, so that's.
And what's even more hilarious about it is it's so like just recently, because we talk about how crazy Marjorie Taylor Greene is. She was on Tim Pool's podcast for 2 hours. So I listened to it just because I wanted to hear how batshit crazy she was. And
Oh, did I?
yeah, and she's that poor girl, she's a dummy.
I will
and-
say this. Can I just say one thing real quick? When she speaks in a long form conversation, she definitely sounds more sane.
Yeah.
Sane,
She's not nearly as crazy as the left tries to paint her, but she's just
an
out to
idiot.
lunch. Yeah.
An absolute idiot.
And I couldn't find it to confirm it, but there was one thing, like she kept saying these wrong like numbers. She was pretending to know things that she didn't. You could tell they were like trying to help her out with some stuff. But there was one thing that she said that if it's true and she really does this, then I think she does deserve a seat in the representatives, because a lot of these committees, they do roll call votes, or they don't do roll call votes. They just ask the committee how they should vote on it, and they vote on it. And what she was doing is she keeps going in there and shaking cages saying, "I want all the votes on record." And so they have to bring everyone in to vote. And if she's making everyone vote on everything and being a thorn in everyone's side and making everyone vote on record, then you know what? We do need that in the House of Representatives,
I just wish it was somebody else.
and not this girl that's just batshit crazy.
Almost anybody else save for Lauren Boebert.
Lauren Boebert.
Lauren
But
Boebert.
but yeah, going right back to what the mass formation psychosis thing. It's like it's just these things that they all fall for, and it's absolutely insane. But that's what I was gonna say. So everyone freaking out about this Dr. Robert Malone guy on the Joe Rogan show. It's only gonna make a shit ton more people go and watch the fucking
Dude,
podcast.
That's what this is where the left gets it wrong. This is where they fuck up, and I'm glad they fuck up this way. And this is somebody who I consider myself a leftist. I'm a Jimmy Dore leftist. What do you want out of me?
Yeah, the leftist made me listen to Marjorie Taylor Greene talk for 2 hours, and there was no substance that I gathered from it.
It makes me more interested when I hear these. Oh, you can't have this person on. You can't talk to this person. Nobody should ever talk to this person. I really, really want to hear what that person has to say.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's human nature, Corey. I feel like it's like that thing you're not supposed to have. It's that extra piece of chocolate cake after dinner.
Yeah, I was
You
thinking
sneak
about
in the
that
fridge.
today too, actually. Like when someone tells me or someone makes the decision for me if someone should be censored and I can't listen to them.
I want to
what
hear
that-
more.
And not only that, what I feel like they're really telling me is I'm too dumb to make my own decision.
Yeah.
On what they're saying, that they have to be the gatekeeper and they have to keep it and protect it to keep my fragile brain from making decisions. And it's like, I'm a fucking adult. I can make decisions on my own. I can decide if these people are stupid or not. I just listened to Marjorie Taylor Greene talk for 2 hours. Guess what? I didn't learn shit.
Yeah, you did. You learned that, okay, it's confirmed. She is an idiot.
Yeah, I learned that. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Is she this crazy person? I don't think so. She owned a small business in Georgia. She was sick and tired of Republicans and Democrats. And so she went and she joined. She was on there dog shitting Republicans the whole time.
Yeah, well, what about the QAnon thing, Corey?
Like I said, she's an idiot.
Very, very fair.
All right. What do we have? We have some positivity, right?
Yeah, mRNA cancer research. Well, not even just cancer research at this point, because Corey and I we've shit on the vaccines a lot. Not the actual vaccines themselves, but the mandates and the way they're portrayed. And the issue that I have is I figured it out today, Corey, when it comes to the vaccines. I figured out why I'm so fucking tired of talking about them. And it's that we can't even decide what the vaccine's working actually is, right? Like that's the problem, because you'll have the people, the lockdown people on the far left go, the vaccines work, and you'll have the people on the far right go, they don't work at all. And what's stupid is that totally depends on the context. What are you actually talking about?
Something right in the middle a little bit. Like, do they work? Yes, kind of. They keep people out of hospitals. But go ahead.
But that's not part of the argument. Because it's like, okay, so what are these vaccines working? What does it mean? If it means what we were originally told, which is that you were like 95% protected against infection. And I'm talking originally, like when we all got our first shot back in February or January of 2021, or maybe March or April, whatever. It completely protects you from getting infected or any illness. If that's what working means, then guess what? The vaccines don't work.
Yeah, the goalpost got moved.
Yeah, if it means that it prevents you from spreading COVID, guess what? The vaccines don't work. If it means you are much better protected against
severe infection,
severe illness, hospitalization, and death, then guess what? The vaccines do work. So it always depends with the argument what context you're talking about working is. And everybody's different. And it's a zero-sum game. You're never going to win the argument because everybody's wrong and everybody's right at the same time.
Maybe that's what we should just start doing to people. Like when people say one or the other, that the vaccines work or the vaccines don't work, just look at them and go, in what context?
In what context?
In what context are you referring to?
And that's what frustrates me so much about the argument is like, it's
binary.
We can't agree on what working actually means. So what are we even talking about? But Corey and I we've kind of shit on the vaccines and the talk about the vaccines in that context.
We more or less shit on the binary oversimplified arguments of it and the mandates.
And of
we
course
know that they work. They keep people out of the hospital.
So we wanted to talk about ways in which mRNA technology is good. Spread and positivity, right? We have issues, or we have ways in which mRNA research has shown to reduce the reproduction of cancer cells, proteins and protein. I think it's kinases. I don't know if I'm saying that word correctly. Propagate signals that carry instructions to the cells and dictate cell fate. There are more than 500 different kinases in the human body. With cancer, a kinase erroneously tells the cells to divide and reproduce in a rapid and uncontrollable manner. But the flip side is also true. If a kinase can be inhibited, it should block the proliferation of cancer cells. So basically what that means is that mRNA can make it extraordinarily difficult for cancer cells to replicate based on some of these studies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that mRNA technology is bad. It's not that the vaccines work or don't work. But what we will say in our positive news of the week, spread and positivity, we do understand that mRNA technology is huge. And I think even somebody like Dr. Robert Malone, the horrible anti-vaxxer.
Oh, you'd agree with us on this stuff, 100%.
100%. Yeah.
And so I'm going to backpedal it a little bit for you, because this is actually something that I've been following for a couple of years. There's actually a really good podcast. I'll have to send it to you, by Radiolab. And then it's called CRISPR. And so CRISPR is like what mRNA is based on. And what it stands for is clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats. And so what these scientists found, which has led to this mRNA technology, is, picture with me, if you will. You know when you write HTML, and when you finish code, you put like the little arrow signs, like the greater or less than signs. You finish your piece of code, and it's in that bracket, and then there's another bracket. So picture your DNA something like that. And now where those two arrows from the brackets meet, that's a spot right there that you can, put something in. You can insert something new. So they found that our DNA is written similarly like this. And when they found this, they realized that they could put in and take things out of the DNA in these spots with the mRNA to modify genome sequencing. And they found this out from simple bacteria, because some bacteria was surviving like a virus attack. And when this happens, they take a part of that virus, they chop it up, take the piece of it that hurts them, and then they store it in their own DNA.
Mm.
And so we have found a way to replicate that and do that. And in doing this, we go back to what you were saying about being able to possibly inhibit cancer cells. There's gene therapy that's closing in on a cure for sickle cell disease for Black people. Now, I say Black people because sickle cell anemia is something that really only affects Black people.
Mm-hmm.
They have helped it with genetic blindness. It's been used in that. And it's even inhibited AIDS by a doctor in China. And so they're using this mRNA that no one's talking about, because it's all about the vaccines, But this science and what it was intended for is making great advancements in situations that we might see the cure to a lot of stuff in our lifetime, Dan. Imagine it. Go ahead.
I don't mean to throw a monkey wrench in the engine of the positivity here, but all that came to my mind was follow the money, right? So
yeah. So a pure
vaccine
thing
makes a
can
lot of money.
easily be tarnished by money.
And what have we always heard? Money's not in the cure.
Right.
Money's in medicine.
Yeah.
So why are these vaccines that, relatively speaking or relatively not speaking, work or don't work? I'm tired of even talking about that word. May work, maybe don't work the way we thought. All we hear about is that and all the money that goes into that. But when the same technology could be used to cure things, what do we hear? Radio silence. We don't want cures. We want medicine.
Yeah, you have to like find it in like science magazines and stuff. But like I read a story that they could do something like and malaria with it, and this is interesting because you wouldn't even be getting into the humans with the mRNA. You would put it in
Mosquito.
mosquitoes.
Yeah.
And
heard
then you would just keep dumping these mosquitoes into the environment, and then eventually they would breed with other mosquitoes, and then mosquitoes just can't carry malaria anymore. And things like this would save millions and millions and millions of lives. Now, the flip side of it is that we get to play God. If you get really good at this, you can start making designer babies, and that scares the shit out of me because that makes me and you obsolete.
I want a white LeBron James. That's what I want.
Why is it got to be
Mud
white?
baby. Well, because my girlfriend's white and I'm white, so right. That wasn't woke of me. If you're both white doesn't mean you have to have a white baby.
Oh, you were saying for a baby, I'm picturing a full-size LeBron James.
Like an albino LeBron James.
I'm like, why? Like, what would that do to further this society?
I'm talking about if I had a baby, I would want a white LeBron James.
That's why it makes sense when you're like, because I'm white and my wife's white, and then I went to some weird like cuck scenario, and I'm like, what? I was completely lost on that. I'm like, I don't understand what's going on here.
Okay, just sit down, please.
Yeah, I will. A white LeBron.
That's enough. Put down the mic.
Baby.
Yes, that's what I was getting at.
Okay. Yeah, sure. That's fine. You could do that in probably about 30
I just
years.
made a lot of woke people mad.
Nah, we fixed it. We understood what we're doing here now. I'm not woke, but I'm just picturing like, why does he want an albino LeBron James walking around?
You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working.
Only with a full head of hair.
I wonder if there's any pictures of an albino LeBron James.
Oh, there's gotta be. If there is, we gotta make it our show photo.
Just listen to Libservative. It's just I'm like, what the fuck is this?
There's gotta be some white supremacy shit right here.
That's funny. So I think we have all of our tickers covered, huh?
I think we're good, man. If you want to go ahead and start with that monologue.
It's interesting though, what monologue is leading into because we're talking about the vaccine. You ready?
Clear that throat. I'm ready for you.
I have this one titled Convenience. There's an old NyQuil commercial, maybe 15 to 20 years old. The scene is a guy who is sick as hell from the cold, coughing violently in his sleep. In a snotty slumber, the husband tosses and turns in between choking on his phlegm and brutal hacks. The poor chap wakes his sleeping wife next to him. She jumps out of bed, staring at her husband as if waking her up was the fruition of some diabolical plan. This imagery flashes across the screen while the narrator's monologue expresses an out-of-date trope along the lines of, if you use Alka-Seltzer Plus, then you might just find yourself on the couch. Make sure to take NyQuil. Take NyQuil, not for your personal health, but to make it more convenient for others. Never mind choking in your sleep. Take this so others don't have to hear it. When COVID hit in 2020, a commercial like this would be uncouth. We're all in this together, and stay safe, stay healthy, and healthcare workers are heroes were mantras that took the world by storm, about as rapidly as the virus itself. We cared about each other's health, not out of convenience, but at a time when everyone was vulnerable to an unknown disease, we were truly all concerned for each other's well-being. Families stocked up on supplies and huddled in their homes waiting out the storm known as Corona. We all shared health tips, asked each other how they were feeling, more both out of consternation and sincere care. Health, both mental and physical, were topics of conversation from the West Coast to the East, even on the Third Coast here in Michigan. A unity solidified by trepidation. Sadly, all good things do come to an end, and like a banana in the sun sitting on the kitchen tablecloth, this solidarity quickly rotted. What was left was a stain that everyone was annoyed by but couldn't ignore because no matter what we did, we couldn't eradicate the damn thing. Arguments about the stain caused a crisis in mental health, friendships ended, divorces, an increase in drug abuse, increase in depression, and tragically even suicides. Soon politics became involved in the stain argument. Who caused the stain? Who put the damn stain out in the sun? Or who put the damn thing out in the sun? Who let it sit there? Who knew it was going to stain? And some, with the stain right in front of them, pretended the stain didn't even exist. Maybe out of arrogance, maybe out of fear. Either way, none of these arguments led to a legitimate answer of how to remove the damn stain. A whiplash of 2 years later, and human nature has trumped empathy. We're back on the convenience train again, exhausted by the monotony of the new, same old, similar to the ones who've ignored the virus in an attempt to wish it away, to just be done with it, and some just want everyone to get vaccinated, mandated if necessary, so they can be done with it, all this mess in a seemingly more tangible way. Both are out of selfish convenience. Both are tired of this new normal, and rightfully so. Convenience. It's ingrained in us in a 24-hour delivery, fast food, and fast internet society. If it takes too long, we want a manager. If it's too much of a hassle, we outsource. We inherently have always attempted the path of least resistance. With a quick fix attitude towards an inconvenient obstacle, it has become blatantly obvious that we no longer care about individuals' rights, individuals' health, or their personal convictions, fears, or principles. This path of convenience is less of water carving the easiest path in the earth on its quest for the ocean and more of a Donner Party trying to save a few weeks of travel time. If you didn't know, the Donner Party is a family that took a heedless shortcut on the Oregon Trail to save a few weeks of travel time, only to be caught in the mountains for a few months with no food or water. The Donner family ended up in a tragic cannibalistic nightmare that only left a few shivering, frail, mentally distraught, driveling survivors. There's talk of not allowing unvaxxed to work, receive healthcare, enjoy society, or rely on government institutions for programs like unemployment, all for convenience. Why convince people to get the healthcare they need and encourage a healthy lifestyle when we can just remove the choice and just force it on people? What happened to we're all in this together, or my body, my choice? We're in a bad place where we are attempting to set precedents that could have everlasting implications out of convenience. We are ignoring our neighbors' concerns and apprehensions out of convenience. We're giving up personal freedom and liberty out of convenience. Here's some NyQuil. Now shut the fuck up so I can get sleep in peace. And so basically, I was just thinking how it seems like so much of this is just coming down to convenience. And it's just like,
Do you mean like? Do you
we
mean
don't
like?
have to convince people and argue with people and try to show them the science that the vaccines don't have microchips in them and that they might actually help you from over a hospitalization. Just shut up and get jabbed because you don't have a choice.
Yeah, it's like shut up and get jabbed so I can get my life back to normal. But
Exactly.
it's like why?
It's out of selfishness.
Yeah, why?
Because that's what they all say. I just want to get back to normal. Just get the jab. Fuck you. What if like you don't give a shit about that person? That's selfish.
And the two have nothing to do with each other. There's no reason we can't get back to normal. Look, we see Omicron running rampant, and
hospital cases actually haven't gone up. I mean, the hospital cases are going up, I guess, based on the number of people. I have to look at the data again because for a while their hospitalizations weren't going up, but I think they are starting to tick up now.
I mean, per capita, they're not. They can't be. They'd be everybody has COVID right now. Everybody, it seems like everybody in the whole country.
In a country that's 70% vaccinated, and we have the most COVID numbers we've ever had, and the country's 70% vaccinated. How does that happen, Dan?
Because relatively speaking, the vaccines don't work. Am I allowed to say that?
Well, that just goes back to our conversation of what does work mean?
What does working mean?
Because obviously, you know what? Okay, the data, if the hospitalizations per capita aren't skyrocketing like they did in previous times, then that's just proof with a 70% vaccinated population, vaccines do work.
Yeah. Go get it if you want it. Go get it if you want it.
If you want it. If you feel vulnerable. If you have any immune deficiencies. If you have any sort of health issues. Get the damn vaccine,
dude. It's the. I can't believe that we're this far into it, and we still have the murderer narrative going on. If you don't get vaccinated, you're a murderer. I can't even believe that's still something that's being said. That's something that's still something. Like if you heard about Novak Djokovic, right? The star tennis player, right? So the Australian Open takes place around this time of year every year.
Yes, I did hear of him.
First major tournament, and he's not vaccinated, and he was. They were not going to let him compete. They tried to strip his visa once. A court in Australia said, nope, he gets to compete. And they're still trying to go back and strip his visa again for a second. Why is it so important to you that Novak Djokovic not have a work visa in Australia? Why is it so important? Because he's going to kill the entire Australian population because he's not vaccinated? It's insanity.
Yeah, everyone's just like, it's like a snowball. Everyone's just ramped up. It's like when you see two people get in a fight and they're both in each other's faces just screaming. And at that point, it's like they just neither of them can back down because of their pride and their egos.
Dude, here's the thing, if I'm Novak Djokovic, and I appreciate him like continuing to try and play in the Australian Open. This dude's the best tennis player in the world.
Is he?
He's the best tennis player in the world. At least left, because Federer's old and he's gone. And but yeah, he's the best in the world. I think he's going for his 10th Grand Slam or something like that. And I just be like, fuck you. Like, fine. I'm not playing in this thing because you know what? Australia makes money off of the Australian Open because people come see the players play, right? That's what it is. That's like any sporting event. Okay, fine. You don't get the best tennis player in the world at this Australian Open. I don't need this.
Right. Yeah.
Wait for the French, wait for Wimbledon, and wait for the US
I
Open.
don't need this. I don't need you.
Yeah. But I mean, credit to him because like he's like, fuck you, I'm playing.
Yeah, he wants to play tennis. He's a tennis player.
It's just I can't. It's crazy. Australia has lost it. I have no interest to ever go there, ever.
Since we're on sports, actually, did you hear about Lidstrom?
Yeah, Nick Lidstrom is vice president of hockey operations here for the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, I figured you might be excited about that. I'm sure. When I saw that, I'm like, well, I'm gonna mention this to Dan. I'm sure he's already heard it, but
that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah,
I dig it.
Yeah, they got the whole back-to-back Stanley Cup team. Well, not the whole team, but like two of the biggest players. Wait, Lidstrom played for 97, 98, right?
Oh yeah, he's been here since he was there since 91.
Yeah, Lidstrom and Yzerman.
And anybody outside of Detroit doesn't give a fuck what we're talking.
No, they're probably pissed because they know the Red Wings.
Nobody watches hockey.
They're probably pissed because they know the Red Wings are probably making moves to be back on top again.
Ooh.
Didn't they have the record for the most consecutive years in the playoffs?
Yeah. 20 years.
Hockey Town, baby. We're back.
I think that's all we have, Corey Walsh.
I think it is. If you've enjoyed the show and you want to hear more, follow us and like us on all of our social media platforms. We're at Libservative Pod on Instagram and Twitter. We are Libservative on Facebook. We have a WordPress where you can read our monologues. We have transcripts, and that's at libservativepodcast@wordpress.com. We are on Twitch at Libservative Pod. We are on YouTube now. We just started uploading our videos on YouTube. Like, follow, and share. You can find us on all of your podcast platforms. And if you like what you hear, just tell a friend where you heard it.
Very good. And until next time, he's been Corey Walsh.
And he has been Dan Griffin.
This has been Libservative, and we are out of here.